regular meeting of the Lane County Board of Commissioners to order for Wednesday, September 20th, 2017. Good morning, everybody. We have one item on the agenda today under County Administration, which is Order 1709-20-01 in the matter of revising the 2017-2019 Lane County Justice Reinvestment Grant Program budget and application, delegating authority to the staff of the Public Safety Coordinating Council to sign and submit the online grant application, and to the county administrator to execute any additional grant documents, intergovernmental agreements, and contracts. And we have Paul Solom and Susan Sowards here. And I don't know, Greg, if you want to introduce the item and let them move on with that.
Vice Chair Bozievich, I'm happy to do that. Just very quickly, this is a matter of receiving fairly recent information from the Department of Corrections at the state, having some concerns about exactly the what funds were paying for which particular services. This involves long-standing pre-trial services. We've had a chance to have some remarkable forensic work done by Judge Deb Vogt and her team, particularly Liz Rambo, to find out that these questions were actually asked in 1993 and answered by the Department of Corrections and the Attorney General's office, that at that time this funding use was sought and approved. And we actually were able to meet with the Department of Corrections earlier this week to share our information and the fact that we thought this long-standing funding for a pretty remarkable pretrial services program was appropriate, and they concurred. They still had some concerns about the amount going towards this program and the fact that some of the programs served in pretrial services do not involve individuals who are currently under supervision. So we thought in order to ensure the approval at the state level, we needed to reconfigure some of the fundings and change some of the split between what we're asking for in the justice reinvestment and what we're asking for in the CCA funds. So that's a long way of saying that we have the chair of the Public Safety Coordinating Council and the staff to the Public Safety Coordinating Council here to articulate what's going on. Paul, I don't know if you want to.
I think you did a fine job, Greg. Vice Chair Bozievich, members of the board. So as Mr. Rickoff shared, this is really in essence about shifting a relatively small amount of money between two different funding sources. But just to back up, we are here this morning to ask the board to adopt the order to revise our 1719 Justice Reinvestment Grant Program budget and application, delegating authority to the PSCC staff to sign and submit the online application, and to delegate authority to the county administrator to execute any additional grant documents, IGAs, and contracts. So to back up and give a little context, back in August, the PSCC adopted the 1719 budgets for the grant and aid funding and the Justice Reinvestment Grant Program per the recommendations of the Budget Committee. Budget Committee is still in the process of refining the community corrections plan, of which the grant and aid budget is embedded. As a result, the grant and aid budget has not yet been presented to the board. The JRGP budget recommendation was adopted by the board as Order 1708-2905 on August 29th, just ahead of the 8/31/17 deadline for submission. So we've been on a really tight timeline here, and we had to work with the Criminal Justice Commission to allow them to amend our Justice Reinvestment Grant Program application since it's already after the deadline. Because of the tight timelines, the PSCC delegated authority to the PSCC Budget Committee to make the final recommendations to the board. The challenge that we currently face is that, as Mr. Rickoff indicated, the Oregon Department of Corrections, which administers the grant and aid funds, recently informed us that part of our proposed budget for the DOMC pretrial services program that's provided by Circuit Court would not be approved in the format presented in past applications, and it was really about this issue of the number of people being served that are on active supervision that are convicted of felonies. So at the direction of the Budget Committee, we revised both of those budgets really to address those issues. So we have shifted some of the funding out of the grant and aid program that was paying for the pretrial services program into Justice Reinvestment Grant Program, and moved, believe it was, funding for parole and probation for gender-specific PO into the Justice Reinvestment Grant Program application. So I'll let Susan walk us through the actual dollar changes, but that's in essence what's occurred.
Thank you.
But I was just going to sit here and nod, so give me a minute.
If you want, I can find this pretty.
Yeah, I don't really have what changed where right in front of me right now. I know it's in here. Financial, hold on just a minute here. I know I've got it. Okay, yes. On page 3, basically, of your agenda packet, the pretrial services determined that approximately 9% of their pretrial services cases involved someone who was an inmate on parole or probation violation. And so that's the way they figured out. They looked at their budget, took 9% of it. Judge Vogt said they figure it's really more than 15%, but that they wanted to be safe. So they went for 9. I think it's actually 9.6 by the time we made the dollars work in the budgets. But we transferred, so we reduced their allocation that we had in the grant and aid funds that was $384,962. We reduced that amount to $136,842. And so we moved the rest of that over from grant and aid budget over to justice reinvestment budget, and then took most of that PO, all but $4,000 odd, and put that over in grant and aid, because that's clearly, I mean, they are supervising people. And this also covers people who are on local control, who are convicted to a felony and sentenced to a year or less. Those also stay in the jail. So if they get released, they also fall within this realm. So it's really a pretty simple of switching just which funding source is paying for what. And then I have the job of getting online and getting in and trying to describe a brand new program that we're putting in. If we'd been simply enhancing something already in the approved, the plan that went forward was approved by the board, then that wouldn't be a big deal, and we would just change that after the fact. But this was a new program, and so that's the only reason we have to go through all of this. So,
if I may, I would also say that this process has been challenging, a little disconcerting, in that the pretrial services program has been funded by the Department of Corrections through the grant and aid process for over 20 years. And this last year, we received notification from DOC that if we submitted our grant and aid application in the same format as we had in the past, that it would not be funded. So we went through a series of conversations, and which ultimately led to what I think is a reasonable solution, although my preference would have been to keep all of the funding in grant and aid. And we could have just shifted it all to the Justice Reinvestment Grant Program as well, but we saw value in keeping funding for the pretrial services program from both funding sources. So that's why it's a little more complicated than it would be if we just shifted the whole thing wholesale out of grant and aid to the Justice Reinvestment Grant Program.
If I may, in closing, one of the things that's been intriguing, and I really applaud Sheriff Trapp, Paul Solomon, and Judge Vogt for their trip to Salem earlier this week. This is an example of the Lane County model and the success of the Public Safety Coordinating Council being an anomaly for the Department of Corrections. They're used to a much more, I'm going to use the word simplistic approach, where a parole and probation department under a sheriff's office does this work, controls these programs, provides the funding, and it's not the robust collaboration and cooperation that goes on here. So they actually struggle a little bit on how to think about us and what what to do with us. And the meeting earlier this week really had a chance to set the record straight, help explain these programs, and really point out that this should be a model for the state. It's a bit unfortunate that the way this played out, but I think the net result is going to be a better informed Department of Corrections and a greater appreciation for what a community can do when it really works together. It's been a hard road, but I think the work product at the end will serve the county well.
Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge that the Lane County District Attorney is in the room. Patty Perlow just came in the back, who also is a member of the Public Safety Coordinating Council. Any questions on the Commissioner Lycan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So not a question. I appreciate I appreciate you coming before the board, and this is well worth having a meeting today on Wednesday, and which we set aside anyway. And so I think this is well worth it. I thank you for the good work, but I would be remiss in thanking our Vice Chair, Commissioner Bozovich, not only his work on the PSCC, but with the Association of Oregon Counties. I don't think people realize that Commissioner Bozovich has been the go-to commissioner statewide. People go to Jay constantly when we talk about this particular issue because of his significant knowledge and working partnership. So when you talk about the Lane County model, I think what you have is a really good teamwork in place with our elected board, as well as with our public safety professionals. And Greg, I just want to say thank you for highlighting that piece of a Lane County model. I think that's really important, and it's something I think we should stress more and more about what we've been able to accomplish here. But I really appreciate the work that Paul and Susan. Thank you for your work. But with all of our public safety folks, you mentioned Judge Vogt and, of course, Sheriff Trapp, and we have a great DA, Perlow, here as well. But I think what you're seeing is really this teamwork model that we have going on in Lane County. And but from my perspective here as a commissioner, Commissioner Bozovich brings a wealth of knowledge. And really helps from this particular piece. It's no different than, when we talk about transportation, things like that. I'm involved in that. But when this particular piece, Commissioner Bozovich is, and really has done a nice job, really, especially like you get Commissioner Business. Jay continues to provide updates, whether it's here locally or at the AOC level, and it's very helpful to make sure that we have that information. But this is really good, and I want to say thank you for your hard and diligent work on this. I have a funny feeling that I'm hoping that more people will see this and say this is the success model that needs to be put forth. I still believe that we're still going to have to work at it and to get people on board, but this is it's not even a start. We've been doing this for a bit. So, but we'll call it maybe a new start and leave it at that. But thank you for your great work. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the kind words, Commissioner Lycan. But, just like your work on the transportation bill, the staff behind you is where that knowledge comes from. And I have to thank Susan and Paul and everybody on the Public Safety Coordinating Council for providing me some of that information that, when I'm speaking in a hearing in Salem, I'm usually repeating their words. and of course, Alex Kyler, our Intergovernmental Affairs Director, our coordinator, manager, what's his title always gets me. But our Do Everything in Salem guy. And how much support he provides me, and he did a lot of pulling together of that Tuesday. Was it Tuesday at lunch group, or was it Wednesday at lunch? I can't remember. That met almost weekly about the Justice Reinvestment Grant budget and kept the pressure on at Salem that we got the funding that we did. And of course, the work that the DA's office has done to increase the number of prosecutions, which increased the percentage of folks under supervision, that also added to our budget. So we had the wonderful thing this year of having to deal with having more money than we had last year, or 2 years ago, I should say, in our Justice Reinvestment Grant program. And it's been nice to be able to figure out how to put that together. But you're right, that is kind of the Lane County model, is all this collaboration and innovation, and sometimes it confuses folks. And we see it, in our coordinated care organization is one of the most highly functioning in the state, full of collaboration between various agencies. Our Human Services Commission on that side of the spectrum also is full of collaboration and innovation, and we quite often have to explain about, like our frequent user system engagement grant we have, explaining to people what that actually does, because it's so new and different and involves so many agencies that people don't get that. So it is the Lane County way to be constantly working for ways to collaborate and innovate and use these best practices and evidence-based practices and try and get good work done for the citizens. So I like being involved in that, and I appreciate the board appointing me to the PSCC, because that's been a great place to learn and a great place to be involved in this. So I do want to note real quick that Commissioner Farr, the chair, is not here today because he is on his way to Clackamas County to participate in affordable housing issues for the county. So he is excused today. And just one more of those Lane County way of doing things, and working across jurisdictions and learning from Clackamas County some of their successes and sharing some of our successes with them. So it's just more of that Lane County way. So any other questions about the item before the board? Then I would entertain a motion. Commissioner Lykin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to move approval of Order 17-09-20-01 in the matter of revising the 2017-19 Lane County Justice Reinvestment Grant Program budget and application, delegating authority to the staff of the Public Safety Coordinating Council to sign and submit the online grant application, and to the county administrator to execute any additional grant documents, intergovernmental agreements, and contracts.
Second.
So it's been moved by Commissioner Lykin, seconded by Commissioner Williams. Order number 1709-2001. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 4-0, with Commissioner Farr excused. So is there any other business before the board this morning? Seeing and hearing none, we are adjourned.